So I'm going to be posting this tomorrow morning, kind of late now. But I was told that there might be some confusion about some of the posts I'm making about evolution and like the age of the Earth and the age of the galaxy and things like that. And so I kind of wanted to take a time to just post up a video where I'm actually looking into the camera and people can see what I'm actually trying to say. And just so that any like misunderstandings might be cleared up. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm looking at Genesis 1 and I'm trying to see, okay, so where do you start running into contradictions when it comes to evolution and in the Bible and the creation account and things like that. And I've been working through it for the past I would say like 1 to 2 months. And basically I'm at the first stage. It's taken a while. Kind of doesn't help that I'm in school, so you have other things you need to do. But really the first part that I'm at is, okay, so the Bible, we obviously have the morning and evening, the day conundrum and all that stuff. Where do I draw the line? Okay, so let's start with the age of the universe. And so I have to ask myself, is the age of the Earth, does the age of the universe have any influence on the Bible? Do you have to misinterpret the Bible to get a 13.8 billion year old universe? And I was looking at the text, and there's very, very good explanations for that, for why that would be the case, right? One of them being, just look at the structure of Genesis 1 through 3. And in Genesis 1 through 3, you see that it says that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. And then in verse 3 it says, and God said. And throughout the creation account, what you find is that everything that's created within the day is followed after and God said. There's been a lot of theologians who have looked into that. And I wouldn't say that there's a unanimous consensus behind that, but many, many theologians agree that the creation of the heavens and the earth that was stated after in the beginning was a separate event to what was created in day one. And so what you have is you have a time period in between in the beginning and God said on day one, right? And so the question then becomes, okay, so now we have an opportunity where we have an unspecified amount of time to be able to potentially have a very, very old universe. If the science, that's what the astrophysics and all that stuff say, there's really nothing that we're concerned about with Scripture that would violate Scripture. So you don't have to have like a science versus religion type of argument. That's never fun. And so that's really what I'm getting at, and especially when I look at galaxies that are really far away. It's like, is it risky? Are you risking anything? Are you jeopardizing Scripture at all by saying that galaxy, the light that's from that galaxy took maybe 13.3 billion years to get here? And in my opinion, it's no. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And do I believe that the universe is, as scientists say, 13.8? I think it could be around that. Obviously there's room for error. I've always said that. But kind of like, I don't know if anyone paid attention to the dialogue, but part of the problem I have with young Earth creationists is that it's not that I can't change my mind on how old I think the universe is. It's that I just don't have the willingness to go from 13.8 billion years and say that the science is wrong and then reduce that to 10,000. Okay, so if you do the math, in order for the universe to be, the measurements to be that far off, you'd have to have an error. It's like 99.99996% wrong. And so you do the trigonometry and things like that. And obviously there's things that are more complicated than that that go into measuring distances and things like that. But the point is that I think that the overwhelming evidence goes towards an older universe, and I don't think that jeopardizes Scripture at all. Like I legitimately don't. I think it's very, very clear that there's plenty of room for that to be, and I also think you have a really hard time arguing that you have to take away a 6,000 to 10,000 year old universe from Genesis 1. I think the text is way too vague. I don't think that there's anything in Scripture that mandates us to believe that. Okay, I don't have a problem if you believe that. I'm not saying that that's wrong. What I'm saying is that, the notion that has to be the case. Like when you read the Bible, you have to interpret it as 6,000 to 10,000 years. I think that's misleading. Okay, I don't think that's true. And I have a problem when people take something, that's an interpretation. There's nothing wrong with an interpretation, right? but then make that the only acceptable and viable interpretation. It's like, no, that's your interpretation and it's valid. That's fine. But when you say that's the only viable one, or that's the only one that you can hold to if you're truly reading the scriptures the way that God intended them to be read, I have a problem with that. I think that's really, really arrogant. I think that that's saying that you have the ability to interpret scripture and that there's no chance that you're wrong. And to me, we have to be careful of that. Okay, and part of the reason that I've posted stuff about this is because it's important to me. Okay, it's important to me on a number of levels. One is that, I have people that I know, okay, that have felt like that they had to pick between the science and faith when I don't think they had to. I think that the two can work together, and I don't think that the Bible rules out the notion that the universe can be billions of years old. I don't even think the Bible rules out that the earth can be billions of years old, if I'm honest, but that's a different video. But more specifically, the reason I'm bringing it up is the church has a history of getting these things wrong. Okay, the first thing that you might have been told is that, the idea that the creation account was a literal creation account, and that's always been the case. That's not true. Okay, believing in the literal creation account is not something that the church has unanimously done throughout church history. That's just simply not the case. You can look it up. Justin Martyr didn't believe in it. Thomas Aquinas didn't believe in it. I think Clement of Rome didn't believe in it. There were others, okay, as well. Very, very renowned church fathers who say, absolutely, the first chapter in Genesis doesn't have to be literal. It can be metaphorical. And so that's one thing you'll hear. There's this odd idea that, ages and metaphors arose to kind of compensate for Darwin, and that's not true. That's just simply false. That's not the case. And Aquinas was very clear about that. And the other thing I wanted to kind of mention was the science and where the church has gotten things wrong. I can think of two things off the top of my head. One being the Earth being the center of the solar system. The other being that the Earth moves. Okay, that's probably the one I like to use the most because we have a very renowned guy in the Protestant church who his name is John Calvin. Okay, and he claimed that the idea that the Earth moves is a wicked idea. Now, the thing is, when you look at what he said, and you try to put yourself in his shoes, yeah, he's looking at a Bible verse that says that the Earth does not move. And you may think to yourself, oh, that's stupid, because you grew up in a society that just fundamentally accepts that the Earth moves. So to you, that's dumb. But put it in his shoes. Put yourself in his shoes. He's in a society where that's not taken for granted, or that's not. Yeah, it's debated. People don't know. It's a new idea. The Earth moving, that's never been proposed before. And we have a verse in the Bible that says that the Earth doesn't move. So it seems to be a legitimate thing. I can see how someone could arrive at that point, but clearly he was wrong. The Earth does move. It moves at tremendous speeds. So to say that it's a wicked doctrine, even done out of innocence, is wrong. It's not. That he was incorrect. Clearly the Bible meant something different. And so, we also had the same thing with the Earth being the center of the solar system and the Earth rising. There's a verse, I think in Deuteronomy or something, talks about the Earth, the sun rising over the Earth. And it's no. It doesn't mean that, okay? Or may it mean that as it appears to us, but not literally, right? And so we have a history, okay? And what I am concerned about is that the church is taking these absolute stances on things that they don't know, that they can't tell me that they are absolutely sure that they couldn't be misinterpreting the text. Genesis 1 is a great example. There's a number of different literary genres that are in Scripture, okay? Some are theological, some are poetic, some are historical, some are maybe a prophetic genre, I'm not sure. Yeah, there's the prophets, but then there's epistological, maybe? I'm not sure. Anyway, the point is that there's all types of different genres that a text can be written in, okay? And so to say that, first you have to figure out what type of literary genre the section of what you're reading is written in, and then you got to say, out of that genre, I got to interpret what it's saying. Well, you know, I think we should have confidence that we can interpret Scripture, but to say that we can't misinterpret it, that to me is where you start to have concerns. And when we say that we know, without a shadow of a doubt, that the creation account is a 6,000 to 10,000 year old account, and it cannot be any different, to me, we're setting ourselves up to fail. Okay, like, that's not to say that that's wrong. It could be the case. I'm not saying it's not. But when you say that's the only thing that you can arrive at when you read Genesis 1, that to me is concerning, because then what it does is it leaves out the possibility for people to interpret things differently. And when they feel that they have to pick between the science and, you know, an old book, they're going to go with the science every day. And that's what concerns me, because I don't think it's a huge issue. I think it's an issue that the church has really screwed up on in the past. And seeing people take these absolute stances is concerning to me. It is concerning to me, and I don't support it. I think it's bad, and you know, well, I don't want to get personal, but one of the things that's just really bothered me is seeing it how it affects people I know. It's like, you know who are in fields of science, or who are wrestling with these ideas, and I have to tell them, like, they really believe that they either have to pick between Christianity and science, and that to me is a travesty. Okay, especially when you believe it as a Christian, it's like it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way, especially when there's a lot of vagueness in the creation account. And there's things that we clearly don't understand, like a formless and void earth with the Spirit hovering above the waters. Well, how does a formless and void earth have waters? And what are the waters? How's the Spirit hovering above it? And you just get into a bunch of stuff you don't know. Okay, it's a theological text. You can't understand all of it, or you might understand it, but you can't tell me that there's no chance you aren't misinterpreting it. And so I don't know. Those are kind of like my thoughts on the whole thing. I know this is a long video. It was made pretty late, but those are just my thoughts on, like, the age of the universe, the applicability of Scripture, interpreting Scripture, things like that. We really, really need to be careful, and if we're not, we're going to suffer the consequences for it. And honestly, I think some of the labels that we've received, such as being anti-science and some of those, they've been justly given, and the church has a history of that, and we need to fix it. And so we shouldn't be that way in the future. We need to reform that, and we need to change it. So anyway, that's all I have to say for you guys. I'll see you. Peace out.